Well, let's look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Wednesday morning. Couple accidents to report. Slow traffic at I-20 eastbound between Lake Murray Boulevard and Piney Grove Road. Today high is going to be 84 with plenty of sunshine. Tomorrow and Friday, sunny with a high of 86. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the early game. All right, 9 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. Extra Point, once again, Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here. Getting you through the middle part of your week as we quickly approach the start of conference play for South Carolina as the Commodores of Vanderbilt rolling into town on Saturday night, and which should be a pretty fun game. We'll start to take a look at Vanderbilt a little bit today. We heard from Coach Beamer yesterday, heard from some of the players yesterday as well, and we're getting some very interesting insight from Casey Henry, who I thought was very, very open about what was going on with the offensive line.
There's a reason I request him almost not every single media availability, but pretty much whenever I need to hear from somebody that is super. Not saying other guys aren't intelligent. This guy is football smart. He knows what he's talking about. He's a great talker also because, again, not every football player can talk the way he does out there, and he gives great answers. And, again, there's a little bit of honesty, but I appreciate some honesty, and I'm glad we got to hear it yesterday. So, I mean, again, it all circles back to requesting him as often as I tried to.
It is funny, you know, going from him, and Boaz gave some interesting thoughts on some things as well, but I listened to DQ and Brian Thomas Jr., and they gave us all of nothing about 4 minutes at a time each. So not everybody is
that's what I'm saying.
Is as insightful as Casey Henry was.
Yeah, but we got some responses to the whole, honestly, I'm kind of glad that we're hearing so much not beef necessarily, but trash talk between Carolina and Vanderbilt this week. Obviously, it all stems from Diego Pavia and him having Game 3 circled on the calendar. And then hearing some of the things, I think it was Vandy's offensive lineman yesterday.
I heard that.
Like, Dylan Stewart is whatever? What?
But here's the thing. If those were our guys, if we were covering Vanderbilt and we heard them say those things, we'd love it. Right? Because, and here's where I believe Diego Pavia has such an influence on that team. And I heard Elijah use the word irrational confidence when it comes to Diego Pavia, because we talked about this last year when Vandy had their success, beat Alabama, played Texas close. You know, it's like, you're at Vanderbilt, right? You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to beat these kind of big dogs. You're not supposed to play these kind of games. You're not supposed to have this kind of swagger. You know, we almost kind of felt like it was undeserving, right, in a lot of ways, which is why this has become such an interesting phenomenon. And I think Pavia's confidence and swagger resonates with the entire team. Look,
it does.
That offensive line knows that Dylan Stewart is an animal. They know they're going to have their hands full on Saturday night. But you know what? When they look in the mirror and they evaluate themselves, say, you know what? I think I'm better than him. I think I'm going to be able to hold my own against him. Because here's the thing. Mentally, if you walk into a game knowing somebody's better than you, you've already lost.
This is true.
I can appreciate the confidence that Vanderbilt now has that, again, in our lifetimes at least, they've never had, because they've always been the punching bag and the doormat in the SEC. We all laughed when that dude, 10 years ago, with the squeaky voice, said, yeah, when Alabama comes in here, we're going to show you how to play SEC ball. And
Alabama, you're next.
they got flattened by 70 points that next week. Like, they've been the laughingstock of the league, and rightfully so, because they've been so bad. Now they're actually showing you a little bit of fight, and when they come out and say those kind of things, I'm like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not upset by hearing that.
This isn't your daddy's Vanderbilt anymore. This is a different type of team. This is a good team at that. I was actually rewatching the Virginia Tech Vandy game the other day. I was just so impressed by the way we talk about how much Vandy throws the ball around, but the way they run the football is very, very efficiently. It's not just Diego Pavia. They have some good running backs on that team. So, look, this is a scary group that, I mean, look, it's Diego Pavia. Like, I mean, you look at him and he's like, all right, like, this is not the most. You look at Lenore Sellers, you're like, all right, that's an intimidating fellow right there. But Diego Pavia, I mean, like, look, South Carolina's already shut him down once. Why can't they do it again? Yeah,
Diego Pavia is a college quarterback, right? He doesn't have pro prospects. There's, he got an extra year of eligibility, and I'm sure a lot of that was due in part to him knowing that his prospects at the next level aren't very high. Yeah, maybe he can camp with somebody, but I don't think he's going to hang around very long at the NFL. So this is his shot at playing football and making a lot of money probably in the process of doing that, in this NIL era. But, he works perfectly within that Tim Beck offense, which is the spread option with a lot of window dressing and moving around and really kind of making you play assignment football and those kind of things. And he's the perfect quarterback for that.
Yeah, he is. He does a great job running that offense. And yeah, does he make some mistakes? He made some for sure in the Virginia Tech game. There was one throw he made where it was just like off his back leg, just firing it up in the air, and it gets picked off. Like, I mean, those are the types of mistakes that you want if you're a South Carolina defender in this game, just because you're going to be able to force turnovers and potentially win the game that way. Like, keep Vanderbilt's offense off the field for as long as possible, sustain drives, and play well defensively. I feel like you feel pretty good about winning this game then.
We'll get into a lot of this and talk about Vanderbilt in just a second, but first it is time for our 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803 all nines. What was Coach Beamer's message ahead of this week's beginning SEC play to his team? Here's what he had to say.
Not much. I mean, Mondays are off days, so we come in on Sundays. We play on Saturday. We had a quick turnaround Sunday, so we were back in here for meetings and practice on Sunday. And the message then was we need to be better, all three phases. I mean, win or lose, we come in here on Sundays and we watch, 10 to 15 plays of the night before and show the good and the bad. And there's good and bad in every win and loss. And there was plenty of good Saturday night and there was plenty of not so good Saturday night. So we watched that. And I would hope that I didn't have to make it clear. I think they already knew that Saturday night wasn't up to our standard, whether it be offensively or whether it be how we finished the game in some ways on defense. And then we went out Sunday night. I thought we had a great practice, and our guys knew that it was time for us to, take another step and get better this week, because we've got a big challenge coming in here on Saturday night. And I told them after the game in the locker room Saturday night, I knew the result of the Virginia Tech game because it was freaking 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was here. And I told them that, that we're playing we open up SEC play and we got a team rolling in here that just ran off, I think, 34 straight points against Virginia Tech and rushed for 260 something yards against them to get their attention pretty quick, that they needed to go home. They needed to go to bed. They needed to get their rest, and let's get back in here on Sunday and get ready to work. And that's what we've done.
I know we're only 2 weeks into this. Does it feel like this conference is wide open right now?
It does. It does. I was saying this after week 1 when you see some of the bigger dominoes fall in the SEC and with Texas and Alabama, teams like that. I was like, okay, maybe these teams aren't invincible, right? Like, they're good. Don't get me wrong. Probably better than South Carolina in some respects. But, I mean, look, I think South Carolina right now, if they go 5-0 this first month of the year. Why can't they run the table and go try to win the SEC? I mean, look, they're going to have some big challenges coming up after that with LSU and Bama and stuff. But if they go in there, handle their business, win most of those games, they'll be sitting pretty close to atop the conference. I could totally see it.
I believe, and Terry and I were just talking about this, I believe in the latest day people, 14 of the 16 teams are either ranked or receiving votes, which includes Mississippi State and Vanderbilt in those receiving votes category. So, again, everybody, just about everybody's had some kind of significant win if they weren't already highly ranked, in the season. And even like a Kentucky, who would be one of those teams not receiving votes, they played Ole Miss really tough the other day. So even that game, coming up in a couple weeks, maybe not as easy as we thought it might be. So this is going to be, it's a tough slate. And again, Carolina's first handful of games are certainly easier than the latter half of the games that you start coming up in October and all that kind of stuff. But none of those are walks in the park. And I think our opinion of Missouri changed a lot over the weekend when we saw how they played against Kansas, which they're replaying now on the SEC Network. Like, whew, that trip to Como looks even tougher. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a very interesting year in the conference. I know a lot of people say, okay, well, Texas and Georgia are probably playing in the conference championship again. Some people had Alabama in the conference championship and the national championship before the season started. And 2 weeks in, I'm kind of like, I don't know about any of that.
I like this. I kind of like the chaos aspect of this league where, maybe our predictions are just far off to where it's not the Texases, the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world playing for an SEC championship. What if it's like LSU and like you said, Missouri's been looking pretty good so far. I could very well see Missouri beating Carolina next week in Como, not just because they haven't won in Como since 2017 now. It's been a ridiculous.
It's been a tough place for them.
It's been a ridiculously long time. But going there at night, it's going to be rocking next week, and it's going to be crazy. And again, like you said, Vanderbilt looks better. They look significantly better than anything we've seen. Shane mentioned it. This is the best Vanderbilt team that he's ever faced in his tenure at South Carolina, and I think he's dead on. They got the quarterback. They got the weapons around Pavia to make it work. And the defense, if the defense plays the way they did in that second half, they were tenacious. They were getting to Kyron Drones a lot, something that we really didn't see much in the first half of that game. If they can play like they did in the second half, boy, they're gonna be tough. And then Kentucky. I'm still not very much sold on Kentucky, but with Zach Calzada as your quarterback, okay.
So Shane said in that clip there, he told the team, hey, we got to be better everywhere going into conference play. Objective number one in terms of getting better on your list is what?
I think it's we'll talk about it here in a few minutes, I'm sure, but the offensive line. I think the O-line getting better leads to a lot of different things stemming from that. The run can be a lot better. Like the run game has got to be better because then that stops making South Carolina feel so one-dimensional in a way where, all right, it's just Lenore Sellers defenses have to worry about now. Like having a good run game, having some good blocking up front, it would be drastically helpful in getting this offense going. Because look, they're going to have to score points this weekend. I don't think this is a game necessarily that you can win. You could probably win this one like 17-14 or whatever it might be. You could probably hold Vanderbilt in check offensively and score maybe just enough points to win this game. But more realistically, I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, I think Vanderbilt could easily go out there, put 3 touchdowns up, and it's up to Carolina to go out there and score.
Well, one thing that's interesting about Vanderbilt is they are really good at controlling the ball, right? They are designed. Virginia Tech got one drive in the third quarter last week. Like, they are really good at going on long, sustained drives. They eat up a lot of clock. They run the ball really, really well. So you have to make the most of every time you touch the ball because you could be talking about getting – maybe 3 less possessions this upcoming weekend than you'd have in a normal game because Vanderbilt might just be able to hold on to the ball that much. So, your margin for error when you do that is a whole lot thinner. So if you have, 2, 3 and outs in there and Vanderbilt turns those into touchdowns, well, guess what? You just found yourself in a 14-point hole. Oh, by the way, a quarter and a half is gone now.
That's the problem. That's the problem here is that, again, I just wonder how many possessions you're going to get in this game. Is it going to be like the whole Army Kansas State situation where Army's got, I would hope that's not the case. Like where Army's got the ball for 40 minutes and K-State's got the ball for less than 20 minutes. I mean, that is because then all your possessions count.
Yep.
I mean, you can't be coming away with 3 points or less. Like you got to be scoring touchdowns almost every drive, and that makes it a lot tougher. So again, a lot to figure out on offense, but the good news is your special teams are good. Your defense has been solid so far. I think the other thing with this defense is you got to figure out real quick is just the secondary. Are they healthy this weekend or not? And then also, Vandy does like to throw the ball deep. How do you defend that?
We'll get into the offensive line and what Case and Henry had to say yesterday when talking to the media as the extra point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry on your Wednesday here on The Game.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of comes down to like a leadership question. Is you kind of have to know how to lead your guys, because everybody is their own individual. Some guys respond better to criticism. Some guys respond better to encouragement. I know. So Lonnie does a really good job with that with us. He knows how to coach each and every guy. But I'd say encouragement is probably the way to go with our guys. Show us show us on tape what we did wrong. Be like, hey, you know how to fix this. You can berate us a little bit, but we eventually need to get out of the practice field, be encouraged, and then execute. You know what I mean? That's the only way you fix issues, is to have the confidence instilled in you that you can do it, and then go out and do it. You know what I mean? And then on game day, it's second nature.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Wednesday here on the game. That was South Carolina's right tackle Casey Henry talking to the media yesterday about the criticism that the offensive line's been taking, and obviously we talk about it on here. You guys write about it on Gamecock Central. It's being talked about on the message boards with the overall fandom. I was talking to a guy about it on the elevator coming down a little bit earlier. Everybody is on this offensive line for how poorly they've played in the first couple games this year. And again, this has been a consistent issue with this team in the Beamer era, and it's something that, quite frankly, we're all sick of talking about. But when it's continuing to rear its ugly head, we have to keep talking about it. And I'm sure with how much we're talking about it, it is being treated with even more scrutiny at practice every single day from Lonnie Teasley, from everybody on this offensive staff, trying to make these guys better.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, this is a group that for a few years now, it's been rough, right? You get 41 sacks in each of the last 2 years. You've given up 6 so far, and again, you get up 2 on Saturday. But again, it's been rough, and it hasn't been great. Now, I will say, I don't think all the criticism is totally warranted, because you look back at some of the blocking from last week. I don't think it was as bad as people make it out to be. Was it great? No. Like, you could not run the football to save your life. That's an issue. Lenoris was under duress most of the night. But on the 2 touchdowns, the blocking was pretty good. I'm not again, you got to give them that at least. So there is potential. Like, Trovon Ball was blocking pretty well. Casey Henry, that right side of the offensive line is doing their job. It's figuring out, okay, what's going wrong with the left side? You got a former Mr. Football and Josiah Thompson, former #1 offensive lineman in South Carolina.
Preseason All-American SEC?
I don't see it. I don't see it right now. So, again, the talent is all there. The talent is not an issue with anything South Carolina has right now,
sure,
especially on the offensive line.
And that's one thing, like, you give Lonnie Teasley a lot of credit, because they've recruited extremely well on the offensive line. And again, I've been here for 3 years, and I've heard about the Great Wall of Carolina, and boom, here comes in Josiah Thompson. Cam Pringle, who I know's not here anymore. Here comes Darius Gray coming in next year. Like, you're getting all of this high-level talent, but you're not seeing it translate to success on the field. And one thing that we learned from Casey Henry yesterday that Beamer also spoke about yesterday afternoon was the communication issues they've apparently been having on the offensive line, which Casey Henry expanded on yesterday.
I think that, to be an effective offensive line, you have to play 5 as 1. Any level of football, that's true. I think communication is probably our biggest thing right now. From Lenoris to Boaz and Boaz out. There were like 6 or 7 times that I saw in the game where we weren't really getting the calls, you know what I mean? And it was like, I would have to ask, it's loud, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes the band's really loud and all this stuff. You can't really hear that much, but, we really need to be on the same page, especially at home when we're not in a away atmosphere. But I think that today, especially, we worked on communication a lot. Lonnie's got a great game plan coming together to let us play downhill and not have to think as much. I think we're going to do really well on Saturday with communication and everything else.
So I don't know about you, but when I hear this, and I heard Beamer talk about it first before I heard Casey Henry's comment, my eyebrows get pretty high. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. If you're having issues communicating at home in a game against South Carolina State where, there were some empty seats there, so it's not as loud as it possibly could have been. How the heck are you going to communicate on the road in a couple weeks in Baton Rouge when there's 100,000 people intentionally trying to make your job harder?
That's exactly why, again, that's why I asked Beamer the question. Like, if you want to roll the clip, go for it, but that's exactly why, just because it's like, you hear that, and I'm like, kind of like typing, I'm like, my eyes are just like open. I'm like, what what are we talking about here? I get it. You couldn't, like, Beamer even mentioned it the other day before yesterday. Like, yeah, there were probably some verbiage that they just didn't hear right, but it was like 1 to 2 words, and it's like stuff that they've used for multiple years now. So
Sure.
again, it's not what you want to hear, because you're going to LSU, you're going to College Station, you're going to Ole Miss. I would say a few of those environments are going to be tough. Heck, you're playing at home under the lights on Saturday,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a bigger crowd.
I was going to say, this Saturday is going to be the most raucous environment you've encountered. And again, when you're on offense, the majority of people are trying their hardest to be quiet to make your job easier. So you're going to have a contingent of Vanderbilt fans that are going to be in there making it loud. The band's going to be playing and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we don't need to put up a quiet please, you know, memo on the board.
This isn't basketball.
This isn't basketball and somebody shooting a free throw. You know what I mean? Like, we can't make your job, you know, as easy as possible here. But this is one of those things that I'm like, I would think that would be figured out in camp, right? Which, again, they simulate noise and all that kind of stuff. Like, I would hope we wouldn't be 2 weeks into the season saying, hey, we're not getting our calls right. We're still trying to figure things out pre-snap that probably lead to some missed assignments and some missed blocks and those kind of things that could be the a reason, at least, why the offensive line hasn't been playing as well as they should.
And why is this just being brought up now? Like, he mentioned it. This was an issue at Alabama last year. This was an issue at Clemson. Why is it still an issue, number one? Well, like, again, the whole hearing thing, okay, I understand it. It's loud in those places and stuff. But haven't you guys tried to do something to alleviate that to some extent? I don't know what maybe put a hearing aid in these guys or something. Like, something has to be different. And, again, it's going to be rocking on Saturday. So you hope these guys are able to better hear the calls. And just, if you can't hear it, like he said, make sure you go up to Lenoris like you do and be like, hey, what's the play?
I do wonder as well, given the fact that Shula has come from the NFL, which in the NFL, a lot of your play calls and procedures are more complicated because guess what? Everybody's really, really smart at the NFL level. And, you know, if you're calling out A, B, and C, then, well, guess what? The defense is probably going to be able to figure that out pretty quickly. So I do also wonder, like, is Shula's NFL philosophy maybe bleeding over into this, making it maybe more complicated than it needs to be?
Maybe. Well, we could probably ask him today and find that out. I mean, that would be something very interesting. But again, if it, like Beamer said, if it's 1 to 2 words that they're just not getting right, then that's a problem. But I think, and I think he did say earlier, Shula did say at some point, either in the spring or the summer, that they're trying to simplify things as much as possible because, you know, the verbiage can be a lot. So
Sure.
You try to simplify it as much as you can to help these guys out. But I think it's just a matter of really just not being able to hear it like they're supposed to.
I'm going to be very interested because Case and Henry mentioned yesterday, you know, hey, when I'm standing up and turned around looking at sellers, that means I'm trying to get the play because, hey, I can't go out there and guess because essentially you're most likely going to get it wrong because you're not going to be playing your assignment right. So I'm going to be very interested to see on Saturday how many times we see guys in the offensive line just turning and looking at sellers, making sure they got the play pre-snap, because that's something I haven't really thought about as much. But now, and if I have time, I almost want to go through and skim through the game the other night to see how many times that happened.
Yeah,
like,
he said 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, and for him specifically, but like
Well, I think he meant for the group.
for the group, okay.
Like he noticed it, and it could have been more.
Yeah,
it could have been more.
But you know, if you start seeing that a lot on Saturday night, it's like, okay, we're still having issues here because they're not getting the play call. And again, that you're going up against what's, I think, without a doubt, the best defense you've seen so far in Vanderbilt coming up, and they'll make you pay. They bring the blitz a lot, like they did against Kyron Jones on Saturday at Virginia Tech. So, you know, you're going to be challenged this weekend, and if you don't have your communication right, it's going to be a long night.
It is going to be a long night if they don't get that figured out, but hopefully they do, and hopefully it is something we're no longer talking about as an issue.
We'll start taking a look at Vanderbilt coming up next and getting some of Beamer's thoughts on the Commodores as they head in here on Saturday night. It is The Extra Point, Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Wednesday on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's Howard and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. As I mentioned yesterday, we are going to be giving away some money for those special teams touchdowns that were scored earlier on the season. $200 will be up for grabs come Friday morning at 7:30. Thanks to our friends over at Loyalistas for the special teams touchdown contest. Just go online to 1075thegame.com and find out how you can win that money come Friday morning. And again, it's Loyalista Special Teams Touchdown Contest. So with Vandy on the horizon coming up this weekend, Coach Beamer shared his thoughts yesterday on what stands out about Vandy when he looks at the tape.
Explosive passes and with their offense. I think there's more of, and I don't know what their philosophy was last year, but it seems like they're even more aggressive at throwing the ball down the field and being willing to take shots. Where if Pavia lines up and he sees one-on-one coverage on the outside, he's throwing it. And those receivers have the ability to go get it. And then you look at the tight end, Stowers, number 9. I mean, he's a weapon, and certainly a guy that we need to be aware of. But that's what I would say. They're a year older. They look even more confident than what they did last season, and they should. They all played a lot of football last season and won a lot of games. But that's the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just the ability to make big plays in the passing game on the outside. And they had good receivers, don't get me wrong, but this year they're a year older. They've added a couple guys to it, and they seem even more willing to take those shots down the field.
And it makes a lot of sense that they'd be playing with that much more confidence. This is the second year of the Tim Beck era as far as offense goes. You got Diego Pavia back. You've got a lot of the same guys on offense. Cedric Alexander, Eli Stowers, Junior Sherrill at wide receiver. So there's a lot of continuity, which would make sense why they seem to be clicking a little bit better in year number 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why. I mean, look, getting Pavia back for another year was big with him, getting that extra year of eligibility. But you look at what he has around him. Like, he's got some really nice pieces, like you said. Again, like the running backs are good. Eli Stowers is good at tight end, one of the better ones out there. And then you have the receivers in that room. It's tough to stop. And if they're clicking like they did, and again, in that second half against Virginia Tech, they were just doing whatever they wanted. Javi was throwing the ball around the yard. You had the running game really efficiently. They had 262 yards on the ground in this game and 3 touchdowns. You want to know how many yards per carry they averaged?
It was a lot.
7.1.
Yeah.
If that is the case this weekend, I don't care what South Carolina does offensively. Vanderbilt probably wins this game if they do what they did offensively to Virginia Tech.
Now, that's one thing I think we feel pretty comfortable about is what we've seen out of this defense so far is we think that they're going to be able to put up a good fight against Vanderbilt. Are you going to shut them out of the end zone? I'd lean to say probably not. But I don't think they're going to let them run away and score, 44 points like Virginia Tech did this past weekend. So I think the defense will be able to do enough. It is that question of, okay, can your offense do enough against Vanderbilt's defense, which, again, I think is going to be the best defense you faced so far this year to make this a game. And again, with how much Vandy likes to control the clock, and by the way, running some numbers here, they are 35th this year so far in time of possession, averaging just a tick over 32 minutes a game in total possession. And again, Virginia Tech only got 1 possession last week in the third quarter, which were bookended by a couple of Vandy touchdowns. So you're going to have to be very efficient when you do have the ball in your hands, because when you get back to Vanderbilt, you may not see it for a while.
That's the thing. Like, if Vanderbilt's winning the time possession, you better make sure you take advantage of every drive you have. I mean, you cannot get off to a slow start in this game because, again, the big thing for Vanderbilt is they got to be able to set the tone right away in this game. Like it's going to be hostile. It's going to be rocking in there. I'm sure Diego Pavia is going to get booed off the face of the earth. Like, it's going to be crazy in there. But I expect Vanderbilt to try and punch first in this game. Like, I think that's going to probably be the case. It's up to South Carolina to go out there and respond, fight back, and go do what it needs to do to win this game.
Coach Beamer there mentioned the fact that they're a lot more explosive this year. Last year, they were 112th in the nation in explosive pass plays with only 30 on the entire year. This year, through 2 games, they already have 9, which is 22nd best in all of college football. So they're stretching the field a whole lot more. And one of the additions they made out of the transfer portal that Coach Beamer was alluding to there is Trey Richardson, who was a transfer from Division II Washburn, where he had nearly 1,000 yards a season ago. He's a smaller guy, 5'10", but they do line him out wide, and he's somebody that's averaging about 15 and a half yards in terms of his average depth of target. So he is a downfield threat that you're definitely going to have to account for. And what gives me concern a little bit is the fact that Carolina's secondary is banged up. We obviously know Judge Collier, Jalen Kilgore, to name a few there, guys that may not be going into this game at 100%, and that's something I'm sure that Vanderbilt's going to try to exploit.
But even with them not being 100%, again, when those guys were out there for the most part in week one, I mean, Virginia Tech was throwing the ball downfield and winning a lot of those 50-50 balls. I think there were like 5 explosive plays that Virginia Tech had in that game for over 25 yards apiece. That's concerning. And it's not like Carolina has played – I don't think they've really played terrible coverage. I will say SC State, the coverage was okay at best. But I think
they were just losing 50-50 balls.
Yeah. Well, not as many as Virginia Tech. It was more so, again, unless I'm missing something, a lot of balls like just over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Where SC State would just throw like a slant or something.
Yeah, and SC State was throwing their guys open.
Yes, like they would be wide open and Carolina would be a few steps behind. But in the Tech game, I mean, they're playing tight coverage right there. Brandon Cisse had a few nice pass breakups, and I think maybe someone else did too. But, I mean, the coverage was tight. It was just they were just losing those battles, and they got to turn around, try to make those plays. So that's the main thing is, like, if you play tight on these guys, maybe just get a hand up and just turn around quick enough to make a play on the ball. But otherwise, I mean, I think they're doing fine. They just got to be, slightly better.
Yeah, and obviously the offensive line got to communicate better. Again, you're going to face what is a very deep defensive front for Vanderbilt that brought the blitz a lot last weekend against Kyron Drones, and I imagine, given the similar type of quarterback skill sets, it's probably going to be the same kind of MO against the North Sellers this upcoming weekend, where you're already having enough of a challenge containing your average pass rush. When they're bringing extra guys in there, that can only complicate things a whole lot more.
Yeah, it really can. So hopefully, again, the big thing we want to see, I think, this weekend, and Tyler, agree with me or disagree if you want, but I think we want to see Sellers do his thing. We want to see him go out there and run the football. I mean, if the run game's not able to get going, at least have Sellers out there doing what he needs to do. Like, I watched back the highlight yesterday of him breaking out of that sack near the goal line and just lobbing that ball up to Jared Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where has that been all season so far?
Yeah.
Why have we not seen that yet?
And that's a question that might be asked to Mike Shula today as well when he speaks to you guys at the media availability, because, again, you definitely see a difference in the way that Sellers is operating within this offense compared to a year ago where he was making some of those magic plays, and we'll see if that changes coming up on Saturday. We'll continue to talk about Vanderbilt and just what the identity of this team is compared to many years in the past. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Felcher along with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Wednesday on the Game. Reminder, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Carolina calls with Coach Beamer. You can hear from him for the final time ahead of Saturday's game against Vanderbilt. Him and Todd Ellis over at Backstreet's Grill again, 7 o'clock here on the Game. And following that, we'll have Thursday night football between the Commanders and the Packers as NFL Week 2 gets underway there. Talking about Vanderbilt, and I think we have to give credit where it's due to Clark Lee, right? Because, again, this is a conference a team in the SEC that's been the punching bag for my entire life, and well before that. Yeah, they'd occasionally reach up and, knock off a Georgia or a Florida or a Tennessee or something along those lines, and then go back to just being, same old Vanderbilt, struggling to win 6 games and, just kind of being irrelevant. But coming into this year, we looked at Vanderbilt and said, hey, this is a team that you have to worry about when they come play you. Now, a lot of that has to do with Diego Pavia, and, again, that confidence that he brings to the table. But I think Clark Lee has imprinted his identity on this team as a hard-nosed, defensive-minded type of team that's going to play you tough. And, again, he was defensive coordinator by trade, coming over from Notre Dame. He's a Vanderbilt alum, playing fullback back in the day. So, we say the word perfect hire a lot, but it really seems like Clark Lee is the exact fit that Vanderbilt's needed for a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a guy that is Vanderbilt through and through. I mean, he's someone that you definitely want as your head coach. And here's the thing. We talk so much about Diego Pavia and his belief in Vanderbilt football and talking about, like, Paul Feinbaum, that they're going to win a national championship and all this big talk and stuff, which, look, for a program like Vanderbilt, you probably need to have that sort of mentality to go out there and do it. Whether it's crazy or not, you have that belief. I mean, shoot, you get the other guys on board and they're talking the same way. But I think it also stems from Clark Lee. Like, he has showed nothing but, maybe not as crazy as it sounds from Pavia, but he instills that confidence in those guys and believes that they can go out there and do things that maybe no one else thinks they can do. Again, people still, I think, look at Vanderbilt and they feel like this is still Vanderbilt from 2-3 years ago, where they're awful in conference play and whatnot and just losing games that they shouldn't lose. But, I mean, they don't believe that. I mean, they are going out there and doing things so far that have been very impressive, not just last season, but this season as well. And if they go in here to Columbia on Saturday night, beat what could be a top 10 team in the country, I mean, that's a game changer for them moving forward this year.
Well, and South Carolina has a nice little streak going against Vanderbilt, dating all the way back to 2009. Coach Beamer was asked yesterday if the streak is something that comes up in preparation for this game.
I don't know if anybody knows. I don't talk about it. Don't think about it. I didn't bring it up with the team. I don't know if they know. It's this year has nothing to do with those previous years. I haven't been around here for every year that we've played Vanderbilt, but I'd be hard-pressed to believe there's a better Vanderbilt team that we've played during that streak than the one we're getting ready to play on Saturday night. They're good guys. They're really good. They're going to be a challenge for a lot of teams this year.
I think you'd venture to say, and look, James Franklin had some very good Vandy teams back in the early 2010s where they'd won 9 games a couple times. Jordan Rogers was at quarterback, had Jordan Matthews at wide receiver. Dang it, they had that linebacker. What was his name?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I guess it was Zach Cunningham, but that might have been after James Franklin. But they've had some good players over the years. But I agree with Beamer. I think this is definitely the toughest version of a Vanderbilt team we've seen in a very, very long time. And think back to the last time they came into Willie B, which was November of 23. Carolina won that game pretty handily. That was prior to Vicari Swain's punt return against Vanderbilt. The last time you had a special team score off the block punt that day. And that was a game that we got backups in. You know what I mean? Like, Sellers had that 36-yard touchdown run because Carolina was leading by so much, they were able to bench Spencer Rattler and bring in the reserve. So it's a night and day difference in what you're dealing with this time. And again, when I look at Vanderbilt play, and that's what sticks out the most from that game last year where they pulled to the upset against Alabama, is they got off the bus that day believing they could win. And you can't say that for a lot of Vanderbilt teams over the years, and that has resonated an entire offseason going into this year to where now it's firmly instilled in the belief of that program, like, hey, we can beat anybody because we've already proven that we can do that. So you're not going to overwhelm this team Saturday night with your atmosphere or the skill that you have, which I do think is better than Vanderbilt, because they have a mentality that, hey, we think we're better than you.
If Carolina plays the way they should in this game, I think they win. I think the offense at some point has got to click. Like, it's just got to. And if you're able to go out there and run the way that we think they can, like if the running backs can be effective, if Lenore's can do more on the ground, we've seen flashes, but we need to see more. That's a huge step in the right direction. And if your defense continues to do what they do, and again, it gives me a lot of confidence that I know it's last year, and last year doesn't really matter, but they did go out there and shut down Pavia when no one else in the SEC could last season. So you go out there and do what you're supposed to do, plus you have the home field advantage in this game with a crowd that should be so much better than what we saw the other night. It could be a really good night, but at the same time, Vanderbilt can handle these moments. They did against Alabama last year. They went into Baton Rouge the following week and did some pretty good things, although they came up short in the end. And then obviously this past weekend went into Blacksburg, a hostile crowd, and came out with a huge win. So they've been there, done that. But again, going to Willie B at night is always tricky, and South Carolina typically wins these games whenever the spotlight is on.
Well, I haven't made my staff pick for the week because I can't decide what I want the final score for this game to be. I likely am going to pick Carolina to win, but I think this is going to be tight. I think it's going to be close all the way through.
I don't know. I mean, I've thought about picking Vanderbilt. I've not made a decision yet, but I see a way in which both teams win this game. But again, we'll have to see. That will be a game time decision come Friday morning when I finish these staff picks up.
We'll talk more about this as the day rolls along. But coming up next, we'll get back into our college football playoff eliminator. Week by week, we determine which teams have officially ended any chance of making the college ball playoff. We'll see what's happened coming away from week number 2 coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along on your Wednesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point, hour number 2. Tyra Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on The Game, as we will do each and every Wednesday during the college football season. We will assess the college football playoff eliminator, where we'll look at the, 68 teams in the Power 4 conferences, which includes Notre Dame as an independent, and decide who's done, who's cooked, who has absolutely 0.0% chance of making the college ball playoff. Last week, Jack, we weren't able to definitively say anybody because it was only one game in, and there's always that caveat of, okay, well, technically speaking, that team could run the table in their respective conference, win that conference, and get in. Though I think after 2 weeks, I think there's a lot of teams that we can look at and say there is absolutely zero way they're able to do that and make it all the way to the college ball playoff. Is that fair?
I mean, yeah, I would say it's probably still early, but yeah, I would say there are probably a few teams now that we could probably early on say they're probably done.
So last week we did not eliminate anybody in the SEC. Almost the entire conference is still undefeated with the exception of Alabama, Florida, Texas, and Kentucky. Are we ready to eliminate anybody in the SEC yet?
I mean, you can't with one loss, but I would say if we're going to, it's probably got to be Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky, yes, they lost a hard-fought game to Ole Miss, but that's probably just the start of a few losses right there. And they also did not play well against Toledo. That's a MAC school we're talking about there. So I'd probably say Kentucky. The other ones, I think they're going to be fine. I mean, we'll see about Florida here pretty soon, but I think Bama and Texas, they're obviously not out. So
I give Kentucky a lot of credit for making that game as close as it was. And again, they, Zach Calzada got hurt late in the game, as did Austin Simmons on the other side with Ole Miss. So if he stays healthy, who knows what happens? Maybe they do actually have a chance to beat Ole Miss, a team that they play close every single time for some reason. So this weekend they play Eastern Michigan, which maybe it'll be a win. I don't know. I can't say definitively, but that should be a win for them before they play. Oh, listen to their next set of games: at Carolina, at Georgia, versus Texas, versus Tennessee, at Auburn. That is their next 5 games after Eastern Michigan this weekend.
brutal. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, and again, there's always that caveat of, well, yeah, you could always run the table in your conference or win the rest of your conference games, which for them would be 7-1, and still technically make it in. But I think even with just the one loss in the conference as of right now, I'm pretty confident in saying that Kentucky is probably done.
Yeah, I mean, again, they got to lose another game to make it probably official, but I would say they're on the verge of doing that. So
now we go up to the Big Ten, the other of the Big 2 conferences in college football. And I got to let my page load here, and we'll see what records look like in the Big Ten as of right now. And most of the conference is still 2-0, with the exception of Iowa, Michigan, Northwestern, and UCLA, who is 0-2. Have you been keeping tabs on Nico through these first couple weeks?
not particularly. I just know, look, I mean, I know it's not a good situation there. I'm pulling up his stats now. He's completed 63% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. How's Joey Aguilar doing these days?
A lot better than that.
I mean, UCLA has been horrible to start the season. They lost really badly to Utah, and then they lose a game to UNLV on the road. I mean, look, UCLA is not very good this year, but if they lose to New Mexico coming up on Friday, I mean, that would be probably rock bottom for them. That would be losing to 2 group of 6 teams. So I would say UCLA is the definitive team in that conference that's probably done.
They also have one of the toughest draws conference-wise. They have to play Penn State. They have to go to Indiana and to Ohio State later on in the year.
And at the end of the year, they're going to Southern Cal, too.
End of the year, Southern Cal. They got Nebraska, which could be, a really solid team by the time that game rolls around. So, yeah, UCLA and Nico did not win on that trade exchange in the offseason.
Yeah, I would say they're probably about done. I mean, it's not looking up for UCLA at all.
So, and we said going into last week that maybe Northwestern was going to be on this list.
Yeah. They lost to Tulane pretty bad.
They did. They did bounce back and beat Western Illinois, which that doesn't mean a whole lot. I have a lot of confidence next week when they do lose to Oregon that we'll be able to finally shovel some dirt on them. But until then, I guess we can allow them maybe a couple more days of hope, right?
Yeah, probably. I think that's the thing with, again, we will start having more definitive answers probably. Like next week when we talk about this, we're going to have more teams that are probably having 2 losses. And 2 losses, I feel like, is probably, if you have 2 losses at the start of the year within 3 weeks, then you're probably done. But for now, it's like you have 1 loss. You hypothetically could go run the table, but I don't know. And again, it would be a lot more speculation than anything because, you know, we say one team is probably done and then they go out here and they win 5 straight and they get themselves into the conversation. So, again, it's early, but I would definitely say UCLA is that one definitive team that's done.
So now we look at the ACC. A lot of teams with 1 loss, including Boston College, Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, SMU, Syracuse, Virginia, and 2 teams sitting at the very bottom at 0-2. One of those being Virginia Tech, who has obviously lost to South Carolina and Vanderbilt, and Stanford, who we put in our maybe category last week, as they've now lost to both Hawaii and BYU. Are we ready to officially eliminate Stanford and Virginia Tech?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was ready to eliminate Stanford after they lost to Hawaii. Like, I mean, Stanford is going to have a criminally bad season. Like, we're talking like they may not win a game type of bad. Like, maybe 1 or 2 wins. Like, they'll find a way to probably sneak in 1 random ACC win. But, I mean, Stanford's bad, and they are bad. And then you got the Hokies. I mean, yes, they've lost to 2 SEC teams, and we'll see what they do against Old Dominion, and then what they got, like Wofford, I think, pretty soon after that. I mean,
let's see. Yes, so they play all their non-cons right out of the gate, and then they have 8 straight weeks of conference play.
I think the better question is how long is it till Brent Pry gets the papers to say adios?
Oh, my goodness. Well, if they lose to Old Dominion this weekend, there's no reason to keep him any further than that. Go ahead and make the move, hand him his buyout money, and start planning for next year because you're already cooked, but you're like cooked if you lose to Old Dominion.
Oh yeah, I mean you're as if it hasn't been rock bottom enough. And again, Tech played good in that first half. Like
they did.
Could they have gotten a few more points on the board? Yeah, sure. But they did a pretty good job in that first half, especially limiting the big plays from Pavia and Vanderbilt. So I don't know what happened in that second half. I mean, Virginia Tech can be a good football team, but they're just not.
And look, they got tougher games in the ACC this year. They got to go to Georgia Tech. They go to Florida State. They take on Miami in back-to-back weeks. Again, there's always the caveat of, well, you could, be undefeated in the conference. I don't see enough out of this VT team from what I've seen, and now a 2-game sample size against 2 quality opponents to think any of that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I don't see it happening for either of those programs. So I'm confident in saying in the ACC, for right now, those 2 teams are probably cooked.
All right, we'll now head over to the Big 12. You got a couple teams with losses. Kansas has 1 loss after losing to Missouri this past weekend. Arizona State 1-1 after their loss to Mississippi State. Baylor 1-1 after losing to Auburn. Cincinnati's lost to Nebraska, but Colorado's lost to Georgia Tech. We obviously know Oklahoma State got run over by Oregon. West Virginia lost to Ohio this past weekend. And Kansas State sitting lone at the very bottom, a team that was ranked in their Week 0 matchup against Iowa State, falls to Army after already losing to Iowa State and narrowly escaping North Dakota. Now, we have talked about the Big 12 Conference is probably the most wide open one again this year, where you had like 8 teams in the final couple weeks that were still in the mix to make the conference championship and thus in turn make the college football playoff. It's definitely harder to throw dirt on somebody because of how chaotic this conference will probably be this year. That being said, I mean, is Kansas State already cooked? Are they done?
They're done. They're done. They're done. They were done after the North Dakota game, but losing the Army at home, they're done. They're done. They're very close to being 0-3 right now and definitively digging their own grave.
Anybody else? that you're ready to.
Yes.
Say you're over with?
Yes. There are two other teams I will say. Again, they have one loss, so things can change. But my gosh, they have two god-awful losses. West Virginia lost to Ohio. Brutal. Ohio is going to get clobbered this weekend by Ohio State. And West Virginia lost to those guys. A MAC school. I know it was at Ohio, but West Virginia. Has West Virginia fallen that far? What happened? I thought Rich Rod was supposed to change everything. West Virginia was going to get back to the glory days of Tavon Austin and Pat McAfee. All these great players. They've had Geno Smith. But no, man, it's just West Virginia struggling. And then and needless to say, Oklahoma State. I don't care what happens the rest of the year. If they go 11-1 or whatever and they're that good, okay, great. I wouldn't even put them in with the loss that they have to Oregon. You lose 69-3, you don't deserve to be in the college football playoff.
So what I saw of the game between Oklahoma State and Oregon, if you would have told me that was Portland State and not Oklahoma State, I would have believed you because it legitimately looked like an FCS team trying to play Oregon. And I know Mike Gundy really tried to kind of set his fan base up for the expectation of failure that weekend because he's not dumb. He probably looked at the discrepancy between the two in terms of what they had, in terms of on-the-field personnel and knew they weren't going to be able to match up. And, boy, they couldn't. They looked slower. They looked smaller. They looked weaker, all that kind of stuff, which, again, as wide open as the Big 12 can be, I don't see. They went 0-9 in the conference last year. They'd be lucky to win a game, if nothing else, two in the conference this year because I just think they are that far behind in their recruiting and development, and Oregon exposed that this past weekend.
I'll just tell you what, man, it ain't happening. It ain't happening. You're going to put, if you ever, not that it will happen because Oklahoma State will be dead and buried by that point, but let's say magically they did go 11-1. You're going to really put a team in against quality competition. Like imagine like you're having to play like an Oregon or Penn State or an Alabama or Florida State, one of these big teams. You expect to put Oklahoma State in there. Again, it's not going to happen. So it's a waste of time even talking about it. But Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and K-State, I am very confident all three are about cooked.
Are we ready to see who this weekend might end up finding themselves eliminated next week?
I think we're going to have a few more teams for sure. I mean, again, there are a few one-loss teams right now that could easily go out there and lose another game here and be done for sure. So, again, this list will grow and grow and grow until we get to the end of the year and we're like, man, there's probably like 10 teams left or 12 teams left. Let's figure this out.
Do you have any guesses for who you're going to pick?
Too early to say. I could see Kentucky being eventually eliminated here, but I'm not sure right now, honestly.
We didn't pick Florida as officially eliminated yet.
No, not yet. Not yet. They don't deserve to be eliminated just yet. They have that big win over Long Island to hang their hats on. But we don't need to say it. Florida's going to be about done here in 2 weeks' time. And again, my Jack's takes. Billy Napier will be gone. Billy Napier will be gone, packing his bags in about a month.
I'm keeping the running list of Jack's takes, by the way.
Dude, did you get the what was it? What was the sound suggestion that Chris said yesterday?
I did not. I need to do that.
Yeah, like
do you want like a scribbling or do you want like an alarm?
I would say like an alarm, like oh my god, the fire alarm, like it's getting hot in here, like something to.
All right,
because again, it is hot takes at the end of the
I can do that. I can do that. We'll have something alerted for Jack's takes coming up here soon. We'll talk some racing with Jen Jensen coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along on your Wednesday here on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. And I don't know, I mean, you probably do need a new system coming up at some point. There's might come that point where your heating isn't working, your AC unit goes out. But here's the good thing. Maybe you don't need a new system necessarily. Maybe you just need a repair. AAA has great deals just for that. That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can still help you out. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. Extra Point. Saturday, Jack Belcher along with you here on your Wednesday on the Game. Talk some racing with Jen Jensen here in just a second. But a reminder, you can go online to 1075thegambling.com and register for the Loyal Lease Special Teams Touchdown Contest, as we'll be giving away $200 coming up Monday or Friday morning at 7 o'clock for these special team scores that South Carolina has already had on the season. Speaking of scoring, by the way, Jen Jensen, as she joins me on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, Denny Hamlin has scored once again his fifth win on the season as he punches his ticket into the second round of NASCAR's playoffs by picking up the victory Sunday at Gateway.
Man, no kidding. Talk about a strong season for him and for Joe Gibbs. I mean, shoot, getting the first two playoff spots by Joe Gibbs, that's pretty impressive. But, yeah, Hamlin's definitely on a heater right now.
All it took was, suing the sport, and he seems to have picked up some momentum.
You kind of would have thought that maybe that would have been a distraction, and I know there have been some concerns that maybe within 2311 there were some distractions from all of this, but it doesn't seem to be impacting Hamlin too much.
It is crazy how, at the age of 44, he is truly, or I think he's 45 now, truly still at the top of his game. We've talked about this before. He's easily the best driver to never win a championship, and that could be changing coming up here in a couple weeks. But 5 wins on the season already. Obviously locked himself in the next round, got a lot of playoff points to fall back on. I feel pretty confident in saying he's probably going to find his way into Phoenix. My question becomes okay, how does the 11 team just either have bad luck or screw up completely to cost him a championship once again? Because that just kind of seems to be the way it's gone for Denny Hamlin, unfortunately.
No, it sure does. And again, I personally am not a big fan of his, but the resume, he deserves to win a championship. He's done, I think, everything right. But, yeah, as far as how the team goes, it does seem like there's always something that just kind of goes askew and takes him out of it. So, while it wouldn't hurt my heart from a professional standpoint, he probably does at this point deserve to be in that Final Four and win a championship.
Leads 75 laps on Sunday, picks up with the victory. Chase Briscoe, who won last week at at Darlington to punch his ticket, ends up finishing second there. So, again, Joe Gibbs Racing running extremely well, 1 and 2 there, and already advanced on into the second round as the Toyotas really seem to be really hitting their stride as we get into the playoffs, which for the past couple of years has kind of been the Ford's thing as they start winning when the playoffs roll around. But this year it's been Toyota.
Yeah, 100%. And to see who I don't know that at the beginning of the season I would have said, you know what, Chase Briscoe is just going to turn into really a formidable opponent. But between the polls he's gotten and wins, I think he's going farther in the playoffs than we might have initially thought.
One thing that was a little controversial from the weekend, Kyle Larson gets into Ryan Blaney in turns 3 and 4. In the middle of the race, ends up spinning him out. Blaney's able to rebound for a 4th-place finish. Larson ends up finishing 12th. They had some words after the race. Wasn't really a heated discussion. Ryan Blaney did say, hey, I'll keep that in mind. But I'm trying to think back. Has Ryan Blaney ever paid anybody back before? I don't recall that ever happening.
He definitely could get mad, but I think you're right. I don't know that he's just one that goes out for the revenge. I think he threatens it, and I'm not saying that he's all talk, no action, but I think he's just a good, solid competitor who tries to respect those around him. And I understand his concern because it just seemed awfully odd for Kyle to come up like that. Kyle's just too good to make those kinds of mistakes, but I also think he's a fairly clean racer, so it's definitely a questionable situation. But yeah, I'm curious. Will Blaney be just mad enough? Because again, it's not like it ruined his day. He finished 4th.
Well, and it's one of those things that I think we think of revenge as like, well, he's got to go out there and wreck the guy or take him out of the race or something like that. But sometimes it's the thing of like, hey, maybe he doesn't, give him a lane when he's lapping him or something like that. Maybe he gets in his way on the exit of pit road. It can be kind of small things that fly under the radar that I think is more Blaney's speed in terms of trying to get somebody back.
Yeah, maybe so. A little more psychological warfare and just sort of something just to be an irritant as opposed to just a big blow.
So now we head into our first elimination race of the playoffs. Bristol this upcoming weekend, where 4 drivers will be cut and the field goes from 16 down to 12. You have below the cut line right now Austin Dillon, Shane Van Gisbergen, Alex Bowman, and Josh Berry. Dillon and Van Gisbergen are both within 15 points. That's technically be able to be made up through stage points and overall finish, but Alex Bowman and Josh Berry have really no choice but to go out there and win this weekend. By the way, Josh Berry once again ends up being the worst finishing playoff driver after running into an accident and getting up in the wall.
I mean, if he didn't have bad luck, he wouldn't have any luck at all. I mean, he's just had a tough time in the playoffs, and And I mean, I think he tends to run fairly well at Bristol, so something, some kind of magic could happen for him. But you're right, he's a win or he's out. That's pretty much the position that he's in.
Yeah, so again, going into this weekend, those guys facing elimination there. Austin Cindric 11 points above the cut line, so he's got to sweat it out a little bit. I want to say Ross Chastain, Joey Logano, those guys are in fairly safe spots. I'd feel better if I was Chase Elliott plus 28. But for most of those guys, as long as you're not running, 25th or worse, you should probably be okay.
Yeah, I think mathematically, like you said, but Bristol is certainly an unknown entity a lot of times, and things that you would expect. If things can go really well for you, but they can also go bad for you very quickly, and that's what makes it kind of fun that it's one of the cutoff races.
So I brought this to your attention a little bit earlier as we've debated a lot about the future of NASCAR's championship format, and Jordan Bianchi, who's a writer for The Athletic, mentioned on the Door Bumper Clear podcast earlier on this week, or strongly hinted at that we could be in for a change in the very near future, which would be a 4-race championship round, as opposed to the 1-race championship round where it's winner take all, where it seems to be more about the total accumulation of points over that round, which is something that I think a lot of drivers seem to be okay with. It's not the full season points format like so many clamor for, but it's kind of a balance in between of, okay, you got playoffs, but you're still maybe crowning a little more legitimate champion that way.
I am not opposed to this because I'm with you. You just, boy, when it ends up being more, luck, because as we know, anything can happen in any of these races, and I do like the opportunity where it is over a series of races where you actually are being judged and earning a championship as opposed to just, oh, man, had a good race or had a bad race.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's going to be for next year, 27, what it may be. I would imagine they'd probably wait until the end of the playoffs to announce this because they don't want to kind of steal the thunder from what's happening right now. But I told my buddy when we were texting about this the other day, I would take it without any questions asked because I do think that's a better format than what we have right now.
Yes, I agree. I don't love this one, and this I don't know. I think overall it's a better opportunity to showcase the drivers and to give them a chance where, like I said before, it's not a one and done. They have an opportunity to race for that championship and multiple opportunities to show what they can do and just not. I just hate having it be you have a bad race and you lose. I mean, the championship is just sort of a big deal.
Sure. Well, and I think with how close everything is in the Cup Series now, even over a 4-race stretch, I think you'd still have, I'm assuming it's still a Final Four racing forward, and you'd start that round with your playoff points and all that kind of stuff. I still think we would get some pretty compelling championship battles over those 4 races. So the threat of, hey, somebody's going to run away with it and win it by 100 points, I don't think that's going to happen. I think you'd actually get a lot of intrigue over the course of those multiple races on who ends up winning the whole thing.
Yep, I don't disagree. I like the idea, and I hope Jordan's onto something and that he does have some inside knowledge because I think it could be a really fun opportunity for the sport, and I think it's something the fans would gravitate towards.
We'll see what happens this weekend, and this time next week we'll know who's eliminated and who's on to the round of 12.
I'm looking forward to it. Bristol's always a Bristol night race. Going to have the race on while watching the game.
Yeah, that's right. Appreciate it as always, Jen. Talk to you next week.
Thanks so much.
It is the Extra Points Hour. Head and Jack Belcher along with you. We'll get into our first edition of NFL Top 5, Bottom 5 coming up next as your Wednesday rolls along here on The Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We'll get into our NFL top 5 and bottom 5. First edition of 2025 coming up in just a moment, but it is time for Who Sprung a Leak, brought to you by our friends over at American Leak Detection. And Jack, I'm having trouble deciding. Do we give it to the Bills the Ravens for blowing the lead to the Bills late, or do we give it to the Bears for their collapse against the Vikings on Monday night?
Ooh, I like this one. I would say, sprung a leak. I think we're used to the Bears doing this and stuff. Heck, we're honestly used to the Ravens doing this. But the Ravens, they had a 15-point lead with minutes left to go, and I'm like, all right, this game's over. Like I literally turned the game off thinking it was about over. And then they do what they do. They blew another big lead. So I'm going with the Ravens on this one. They definitely sprung a big leak, although I am very disappointed in the Bears. First game with Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams all together. Rough showing there.
They seem to be cooking pretty good, and I was even questioning, like, oh, man, maybe J.J. McCarthy, maybe he's not the right fit here. And then he came alive there in the second half. They had to come back, and, the Bears just kind of shut down. So it might yet be another long season in Chicago.
The big thing is that the Ravens scored 40 points.
They did.
So that's the reason why I'm going to say they totally sprung a leak. You should not lose a game when you score 40 points, but alas, they did, and give the Bears a little bit of grace because they're still trying to figure things out, it seems like.
So with that, we'll get into our NFL top 5, bottom 5, which we'll do each and every Wednesday during the NFL regular season. This is more kind of our individual power rankings. These are going to fluctuate. They're going to change week to week based on what we saw this past week or however we determine this criteria. So it's not an exact science. So if it upsets you, then your top 5 is probably different than my top 5, and your bottom 5 is probably different than my bottom 5. So for you, who comes in at number 1 in your top 5?
Philadelphia Eagles, the defending champs. I think this is a pretty easy one just because of that fact alone right there. If you're the champs, you deserve to at least start the year in the number 1 spot. And did they play particularly great? No, they shut out the Cowboys in the second half, but they won 24-20, got off to a bit of a rocky start in this game, and probably should have lost if it weren't for CeeDee Lamb, who made a lot of mistakes in this game. But hey, the Eagles won, and they're 1-0.
I have the Eagles in my top 5. I do not have them number 1 though. I have the Packers number 1.
Ooh.
Because I think they controlled the entire game against the Lions. Now, here's the thing. I think the Lions are going to take a little bit of a step back this year. We saw how they were without their 2 coordinators on Sunday. So, maybe the Lions aren't as good as they were a season ago, but the Packers went in there, handled their business, won a divisional game at that, which is obviously very, very huge too, and looked just pretty impressive all the way around.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. They are in my top 5. I'll get into them in a few minutes here, but number 1, I'm a little surprised you didn't have the Eagles at number 1. The disrespect to the champs.
Yeah, I guess hey, they're not defending anything, they said, so I'm starting with a clean slate.
I guess that's true. Number 2 for me, originally I had them probably about 3 or 4 just based on how horrendous their defense was, but I'm going with the Buffalo Bills, and I could have easily put them at number 1. But I'm an unbiased, objective person, so I will put that aside for now. Look, that offense is incredible. They looked very, very good. You can win a football game anytime you have Joshua Patrick Allen out there doing his thing. He is so, so good. So I love what they're doing on offense. They got some real weapons. Kincaid looks so much better. Keon Coleman looked great too. Those are 2 guys that I think were a little bit disappointing last year. You get those guys going, it'll be great. But honestly, the defense, man, was rough. And quite honestly, I don't know if you rewatched the play on the game-winning field goal by Matt Prater. Did you see how close Kyle Hamilton was to
yeah. He missed about like a couple inches.
I don't know how he didn't block that kick. And we could be talking about the Buffalo Bills a lot differently right now. Heck, they would not be my top 5 right now if they lost that game. But alas, they won, and you just got to figure out the defense. But they made stops when it mattered most. So they're number 2 for me.
I'm going to go with the Chargers, actually, at number 2. They picked up a win against the Chiefs for the first time since 2021. Believe it or not, obviously that's a divisional rival. And I think, because, look, I have a lot of belief in Jim Harbaugh as a head coach. I think they're going to be the team that takes that even bigger step forward this year. and maybe really does give Kansas City a run for their money in that division that they've held on lock for for so long. And I loved what I saw out of Justin Herbert on Friday night. He looks great in year 2 under Jim Harbaugh. I think that team's going to be in for a really, really strong season, and I think Friday night was an indication of that.
Absolutely. Again, they are in my top 5 as well, but not at number 3. I do have the Green Bay Packers at 3. I was very, very impressed with the way they played against the Detroit Lions and manhandled them for most of the afternoon out at Lambeau Field. They've looked good so far, obviously adding Micah Parsons. He didn't play a ton of snaps, but he did get a sack in this game. I think the offense looked pretty good. And again, you beat the Lions, who were the number 1 seed in the NFC last year. The best team of the regular season, in my opinion, last year. So, good win to start the year for Green Bay, and I think they are legit. I think they are a contender to go out here and potentially win the Super Bowl.
My number 3 is Philadelphia Eagles, as you mentioned a moment ago, is your number 1. Obviously, you survived a tough game against your rival in weird circumstances with the delay and all that kind of stuff. You also played literally the entire game without probably your best defensive player in Jalen Carter, so this team stands to get even that much better when he does return this upcoming weekend as they face the Chiefs in a Super Bowl rematch, which will be a lot of fun to watch. But number 3 for me.
Number 4 for me, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I know, having an 0-1 team in here, what a sin, what a crime I'm committing here. But again, the Ravens look very, very good offensively. Defense, I'm surprised. I am. I'm surprised at how bad that defense looked when it mattered most. And look, it's the Bills' offense. I get it. The Ravens are going to be fine. They got Lamar Jackson, who looked great. They got Derrick Henry, who fumbled when it mattered most, but he had a really good game otherwise. The Ravens have all they need, but a performance like that, we've seen it far too many times. They got to be better when it matters most.
My number 4 is the Buffalo Bills. Again, that comeback was insane. I think we all kind of gave up hope on them being able to win that game, but they did nonetheless. And yeah, that offense is absolutely on fire. Defense could do some work when you do give up, 40 points and find yourself into that in that kind of hole. But as long as the offense keeps clicking that way, they're going to have an opportunity to win a lot of games this year. Obviously, the question becomes for them and the Ravens, okay, can you finally get over the Kansas City hump once you get in the month of January? And that's what we're all obviously waiting to see.
Yeah, and then my last one here, number 5, going with the Chargers. I'm very impressed. I'm happy to say that they beat the Chiefs the other night. This was the type of performance that they needed. Again, it's been the Chiefs division for so long now to where it's like, the Chargers, they just have always underperformed with Justin Herbert, but I'm liking what they got going. He's my fantasy quarterback too. So people were telling me how crazy I am for having him as my quarterback and all this and that. And I won week 1 fantasy pretty easily. So I had a run game going, had Herbert cooking, but no, I'm very impressed with the way the Chargers looked.
My number 5, and look, I'm somebody that's been very critical of Aaron Rodgers the entire offseason because I think he's, past his prime. I will say, watching him on Sunday, he kind of looked like old Aaron Rodgers, at least in that moment. So for the time being, and I know it was the Jets, which we'll see how good they end up being this year, I was impressed by the Steelers on Sunday. I thought they looked like, not a Super Bowl contending team, but definitely one that might be able to actually win a playoff game this year.
And that's what they need. That's what they need. It's been far too long since Mike Tomlin has won a playoff game. With all the success that he's had, and he has a Hall of Fame head coach and whatnot, he's got a Super Bowl ring. But again, the Steelers, they're always pretty good, but they just cannot seem to win any playoff games. So they got Aaron Rodgers now. Looked great the other day, 4 touchdowns. If that's the type of Aaron Rodgers they're going to get, shoot, this might be a Super Bowl contender. But they got to get that defense cleaned up though, because giving up 32 points to the Jets, that's a lot.
We'll hit our bottom 5 to wrap up hour number 2. It is the extra point here on your Wednesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Jack Belcher wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Wednesday on the game. We gave our NFL top 5 for week number 1. In that last segment, now it's time to hit the bottom 5, which is always the more entertaining part as we talk about teams that are, if not total disasters, bordering on disasters. So go 28 to 32 here. Who is your 28th team in the NFL?
Carolina Panthers. I'm disappointed, man. The Panthers are a sleeper for me to potentially make the playoffs, but they're not doing it the way they looked on Sunday. It's the same old Bryce Young, disappointing at the beginning of the year. I have hopes he's going to turn it on. He's got weapons to work with now this year, and he's looking kind of just average at best. So he's it's not looking great for the Panthers right now. Obviously losing to the Jaguars, so hopefully they can turn it around.
The Panthers are in my bottom 5, but not at number 28. I'll give that to the Bears. Again, offense just completely locked up in the second half. Look, I don't know how good Ben Johnson's going to be as head coach. I know he's a great coordinator. We saw the success that he had with the Lions, but it's going to take some time to figure out if he's a good head coach or not. And again, this Bears team has just been plagued by mediocrity or bad football in the past handful of years. Their success has not been consistent. I think Caleb Williams has a lot of upside. We haven't seen it completely yet. They do have weapons around him on offense, which is good. But, man, you just can't give away a game the way that they did against a team that was struggling the way that Minnesota was for the first half of that game. So, for the time being, at least 28th for me.
At 29, I'm going to go with the New York Football Giants. Russell Wilson is no longer a good quarterback. That's been the case for a little bit now, but, I mean, he looked – did you see that one throw he had towards the end zone, kind of like inside the red zone, just airmails everyone?
Yeah.
And I just don't see it, man. When are they starting Jackson Dart, I think is the bigger question.
Yeah, usually it takes a couple weeks into the season before people start clamoring for the backup. But with how poor of a performance they had on Sunday, and again, this kind of falls in line with the Russell Wilson we've seen for the past couple years, going back to his time at Denver, his time in the Steelers last year, where it's like, this guy just ain't it anymore, man. I don't know what happened, but the Russell Wilson from Seattle seems like a lifetime ago.
It does, but he's also getting older. I mean, time defeats everybody, as we all know.
My 29, by the way, is the Panthers, and just like you, actually on my notes I said Young looked like his old self again in the bad way, completing only about 50% of his passes. I like the confidence he was playing with at the end of last year that I didn't quite see on Sunday. And look, they had a weird delay, in Jacksonville and stuff like that, but still, that's a Jacksonville team that shouldn't beat you that soundly.
Exactly. And by the way, for all the things that went wrong for the Panthers, how about that interception by J.C. Horn?
Yeah.
That was sick.
That was a good moment.
It was. Number 30, Tennessee Titans. Oh, boy. I don't know. This team looks real bad to start the year. I mean, Cam Ward, we'll see what he becomes, but again, they just were not able to do anything offensively against the Broncos defense, which inherently is pretty good. But it's not like Bo Nix had some crazy day or anything to where it's like, oh, man, the Broncos just dominated this game. Was not the case, but I think that says more just about where the Titans are at right now, and they've got a lot to build on here.
I got number 30 is the Giants. Again, talked about a moment ago. Russell Wilson's cooked. Brian Dable's coaching for his job. It's a mess. I don't see much upside there. This whole thing's going to get burned down to the ground before too long, probably. It's going to be a long season for them.
You all good there?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, number 31. I was going to put them at 32. If we were starting before the season, they would have been my 32. But I'm going with the Saints. They did not look I'll say this. Spencer Rattler looked fine. I think that that one to throw to the end zone at the end of the game should have been caught. No reason to drop that pass there. We're talking about potentially tying the game and going to overtime. And maybe the Saints are higher up in these rankings and they're not even in the bottom 5. But we think we know what they're going to end up being this year, potentially number 1 pick at the end of the season. Maybe they'll go after Arch Manning or whatever top quarterback is out there. But yeah, I mean, the Saints, they lost 20-13 to the Cardinals the other day. Nice little comeback to try and tie that game up, but just came up short.
Number 31 for me, Tennessee Titans. Here's the only stat you need to know. They had 133 yards of offense and 131 penalty yards. I think that says everything we need to know about the Titans.
It does. then dead last. And I can't imagine why we wouldn't both agree on this. Maybe not. The Miami Dolphins. Oof.
Ding, ding, ding. We agree on one for the first time.
Yes. We can certainly agree on this. Wow. Talk about a travesty. All that talent, and it's just flushed down the toilet. I mean, this team straight up sucks. I mean, it is Tua Tagovailoa. One touchdown pass, 2 interceptions, 14 of 23 for 114 yards. Danny Dimes, Daniel freaking Jones had a great day, and he diced up the Dolphins defense. And all that talent, again, to just get shut out for most of that game, 33-0, and then score a touchdown late. I mean, the Dolphins deserve to be in this spot without question.
It doesn't help that your quarterback is a ticking time bomb, that every time he gets knocked down, you wonder if, does he have another concussion? How long is he going to be out for this time? Because he's had so many up to this point.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer his career goes because he's just become so fragile. And also the innovative offensive mind of Mike McDaniel has been caught up to. Because here's the thing. Well, if you're doing something revolutionary and different, you can get away with it for a while. Eventually, the league catches up to you, and I think the league is finally caught up to Mike McDaniel, and his days might be numbered down there in Miami.
Could be. Again, the way they played in this game, just the fact of how much of the Colts are a mess in their own right too. I mean, the Colts should not have dominated the Dolphins as much as they did, but they did. I mean, Daniel Jones had 3 touchdowns in this game. And he's just throwing the ball all over the place and making plays. And it's just startling to see how bad the Dolphins are when it's not 80 degrees and they're in South Beach.
That's our NFL Top 5, Bottom 5 for week number 1. We'll hit it again coming up next Wednesday as, again, tomorrow we'll dive back more into Vanderbilt as this game gets closer. See you tomorrow, Jack.
I will see you tomorrow, buddy.
Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. 11 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you here on the game as we navigate you through the middle of the week, getting you set for now the first game of conference play between South Carolina and Vanderbilt coming up on Saturday night as we embark on the next 8 straight games, all against conference opponents, and figuring out where Carolina falls in the SEC this year. That after 2 weeks of conference play, or 2 weeks of just general play so far, seeming a little bit wide open. Maybe some of the teams we thought were going to be good, not as good, and some of the teams we thought were going to be bad, maybe not quite as bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a trend all offseason is, hey, there's going to be a lot of depth in this conference in terms of that middle of the pack, too. And you know, if you're 4th, you could just as easily be 13th in the SEC this year, I think, based on, you know, a handful of plays even potentially. So there's going to be jockeying for position all year long. As we know, like we think we know what we see through like week 1, and then we learn new things week 2. Then by week 6, we realize what we thought we knew in week 2 wasn't real. And, you know, I still think there's going to be plenty of kind of shifts and turns and drama along the way. So it should be fun. By the way, guys, so the lobby out here looks completely different now.
Yes, it does.
And I know we've got like all these upgrades going on in here, but I appreciate the new monitor setup. But I cannot see Tyler.
We're
like I'm looking through
about a
like I'm
2-inch
in
crack.
prison, looking through the little visitor thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do something with this. I don't know.
Yeah, I think those move. We may have to come in there and adjust those in the next break. But I keep like your days in here are a little bit separated, and
Yes.
you get it. You got some things going on. So every time
I have a newborn at home trying to.
every time you
trying
come
to
in,
balance it.
there's something new, either out in the lobby
Yes.
or out in here. So it's almost like a present each time Wes comes in of what's going to look different this time.
Dude, it looks way different out there now. So very cool. Little podcast studio.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't say little, big podcast studio.
Some nice couches. Chris, have you played the pinball yet?
Chris has
Chris.
no
Hold on.
opinion.
Try that again, Chris.
After
you
I
go.
got done making fun of Josh yesterday,
Yes.
went out there. He was playing pinball. He was defending himself, you know, of course, and all that.
What-
So no, I have not played the pinball machine. Am I wrong? At one point, is there still Pac-Man out there?
No, we had Pac-Man.
We had a mini Pac-Man for like 2 days. and
Yeah.
I played it.
Yeah,
then it's gone.
Pac-Man's out there right now. That may be something that's being added. I don't know. But we have had it out there before, but not currently.
I want NBA Jam
Okay.
arcade version. I want Time Crisis. Y'all remember Time Crisis? Oh my gosh. Wes, Time Crisis? No.
Maybe.
Shooter game, you know. Yeah, Time
Okay.
Crisis, NBA Jam. We may even need like what was the NFL Street?
NFL
or whatever,
Blitz.
Yeah.
NFL
Blitz.
Blitz back in the day.
where you could fly like 100 yards and tackle somebody. We need that. We're going to keep upgrading this thing, guys.
Well, luckily, Jack Veltry's sitting out there right now. He was telling me coming in, he's going to donate his PS5 for all of us to have in the
Holy
lobby.
cow.
So
I'm
that's
sure
on
he
the
is.
record now.
I'm sure he
Thank
is.
you, Jack.
Very thankful for Jack. for
Tyler,
doing
add that to Jack's
Yeah.
hot takes. So
Yeah,
Wes, yesterday,
we've been compiling a list.
you know, Jack was on one yesterday in the 10 o'clock hour. And so he started, like, he was firing off just very specific, you know, things that it wasn't even like it was a prediction. Jack's just like, yeah, this is happening. So Tyler is now creating a note on his notes app with Jack's hot takes.
Yeah.
We may even create a sounder for when he drops one on air, and we're going to track them throughout the year.
So far, we have Billy Napier getting fired after a 1-5 start.
Yes.
USF will be in the college football playoff, and Mike Gundy will be fired at season's end, not mid-season, but season's end. That's what we have so far.
Andy's donating his PS5.
And donating PS5.
I mean, those are hot, but I don't think they're completely out of the realm of possibility. Now, if he gets all the details right on, you know, the 1-5 start, Gundy. Well, has Gundy done enough in his career there that, you know, no matter how badly it goes, that does he get to go out on his own terms?
I would think, considering that before he got there, their success was fewer and far between. They had some 10-win seasons back in the day. Les Miles had a little bit of success, but they were not the consistent winner that they had been under. They made 18 straight bowl games prior to last year. I know you're having trouble seeing me. But
how long has he been there now?
20 years. He's the longest. Well, no. Whittingham's been, I think, at Utah the same amount of time. And I think they're like neck and neck. No, Ferentz has been at Iowa since 99. Sorry, but they're definitely like second or third in terms of longest tenures at one school.
And Gundy played there.
There. So you have the alumni element of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do as much pressure as there is to win everywhere these days. I think there does have to be a little bit of just, let's take the context here. If you've been somewhere for that long, I don't think you fire the guy mid-season no matter how bad it gets. Now, does it get so bad that both sides just say, hey, we're going to go ahead and announce something? I mean, I think that's a possibility. But because that situation seems to be, I don't know if it's fixable.
Does he just retire? Like, he's 58, made a lot of money. It's like, you know what? This ain't going well. I don't want to get fired. Maybe I just announce my retirement early.
I mean, I don't think that's a bad path.
Yeah, because they've already pulled the lever of, hey, I'm going to give some of my salary back. You know.
Mm-hmm. Once you pull that, that's like every coach gets one round of the scapegoat, fire the OC or fire the DC. Hey, we're reassessing everything. We're starting over. Every coach gets one of those. The modern version of that now is, hey, I'm giving my salary to NIL.
Yeah.
And you'd have to kind of double down. We've seen it work with Florida State,
sure,
which is the just poster child right now of how up or down you can be living and dying with the transfer portal. And, with Oklahoma State, though, we're seeing, how often do we see that kind of, I got to fire my OC or my DC, and then it doesn't really fix anything. And then a year or two later, boom, you have a coaching change at the top. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But, boys, hey, big game this weekend.
Yep.
Do y'all get a different buzz, like a different feel when it's a big game, like when it's like as the week goes on, and I don't know if it's listening to the players talk. I don't know if it's literally just walking around in Columbia. I get a different feel when it's a big game.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this is a game that I just saw it on the network earlier. They were talking about it there. Like, it's a game that gets talked about locally, nationally. Like, hey, this could be entertaining, or here's why this team may win, or this team may win. Like, it generates a lot of buzz. And I do think this game has a lot of elements that people, there's a lot of good games going on this weekend, but I think there's a lot of people that are intrigued by seeing what's going to happen on Saturday night.
Yeah, well, and Tyler was looking at me. I don't think he's quite bought into what I'm saying yet, but I think by the end of the week, I'm going to have him on board. Chris, I feel like with the little bit of just chirpiness, the chippiness, like Vandy's, they haven't said anything completely, on the level of like Jack's hot takes or anything, but they, there's a little bit of edge to this game already, and it was only Tuesday is my point. Like, I feel like, Pavia has already made it clear he's circled this game. Vandy has all the confidence in the world right now coming in. Like, this is not a game that anybody in Garnet and Black from the fan base circled prior to the season. But give those people in Williams-Brice Stadium yet another reason to yell on Saturday night. Just give them an excuse, and it takes that place to yet another level. We already know it's going to be a madhouse, but I just got a feeling we're going to see another one of those classic Willie B atmospheres if South Carolina can go and give them something to cheer about early on. And this thing just, South Carolina Vandy, yes, this is a real sentence. It has a big-time feel to it right now.
Yeah, it really does. I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. I go back to your kind of top 10 doctrine, Wes, where South Carolina, and they're right outside right now, obviously, but they're still in the top 11. They're in the top 15. And so they got more eyeballs on them. And then you've got Vandy, this is not the Vandy. This is not your grandma's Vandy. This is not the Vandy of even 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. This is a Vandy team that's gone and done some things in college football. They won some big games last year. You've got Pavia out there talking, but backing it up. You know, if Diego Pavia was this guy that just went on podcasts and talked about circling games and what they're going to do this year, you know, if he wasn't a really good player, and Shane Beamer was effusive in his praise yesterday of Pavia, you know, you just kind of brush it off. But knowing what he can do, knowing guys that this Vandy team is extremely experienced. They brought a lot back. They hit on some guys in the transfer portal, it appears. It's the first SEC game. I'm with you. I think this has a bigger game feel along the lines of some of the other like bigger SEC games that we've seen in Williams-Brice. It's not. It's kind of hard to get used to say, hey, South Carolina Vandy is a huge game, but this one definitely has more of that feel to me.
We'll get some thoughts on Vandy from their perspective with Chris Lee coming up here in just a couple minutes from VandySports.com. He gives insight into the Commodores ahead of Saturday's matchup. But you're right. You know, Diego Pavia obviously instills a lot of confidence, and you're seeing that resonate with the rest of the team. And that's one thing that, you know, Vandy's not been able to say for a long time is they come into a season confident with the ability to know that they can go out there and go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams. Obviously saw what they did this past weekend to Virginia Tech, and they're riding that wave of momentum into Saturday night.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it. I'm excited. It's a good Vandy team, too. Like, it's not – like, I put it in the two things can be true at once category. Like, you had a lot of people coming off of Saturday for South Carolina. Like, I saw some real hot takes about, you know, how bad Carolina is online. And, you know, if we play like this, Vandy's going to kill us. And, you know, in terms of two things to be true at once, like, I don't think South Carolina is who they looked like for the first quarter the other night. Like, I don't think you're going to see that this week against Vanderbilt. But my other side of that, not that Vandy's going to come in and kill South Carolina, is more just, hey, I think Vandy is a pretty good team. Like, I think if Vandy were to win the game, you're not shocked. But I think it's more would be because, hey, this is just a veteran, experienced, fairly talented Vanderbilt team coming in, not necessarily because, oh, South Carolina went 3-and-out 3 times against SC State.
Again, Chris Lee coming up next from VandySports.com, giving us some insight in the doors ahead of Saturday's matchup as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Wednesday on the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you on your Wednesday here on the game as we start looking ahead to Vanderbilt this upcoming weekend. Talked about him there in that first segment, and we now welcome in on the AAA Heating and Air phone line from VandySports.com, Chris Lee. Once again, Chris, we appreciate your time. As always, we mentioned at the start of the show, a lot of hype and vibe around this game that feels like a big game on our side. How's it feeling from the Vanderbilt side of things going into this weekend?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the biggest game Vanderbilt's played in a while. I mean, there's a lot of goals on the table for Vanderbilt. I think winning the Virginia Tech game put Vanderbilt on schedule to get back to a bowl. You know, if it's going to get to a better bowl, or even as some of the players have been talking about all summer, get to the playoff, then this is one that you really need to have. And, you know, but that's always been a tough ask for Vanderbilt to beat Carolina anywhere.
Hey, Chris, it's Wes. Appreciate you taking the time, man. Obviously, this is a Vandy team that brought back a lot of their key players from last year. But for those who maybe have not paid attention, you know, other than Pavia, who on this group, like kind of that, I guess, 1,000-foot view of the team right now, what were the spots where pretty much everybody came back, and are there a couple of positions where it's the other side, like they kind of had to replace a lot of players at that spot?
Well, I mean, they replaced a lot of people. They lost both of their starting safeties who were older guys, but they replaced them with some pretty talented guys. C.J. Hurd for Florida Atlantic, who's had a big impact. He's had an interception and I think a sack so far in big spots for them. But, I mean, and even where they replaced, which was mostly on the offensive line, they've got 5 graduate transfers there, guys. 4 of those guys are new, and one of them is a tackle from last year from Liberty who moved inside to guard. So they've got – Phil Steele had them coming into the season as the oldest team in the country. I really don't know why people aren't talking about that more, especially when you're old in the trenches, which they are much bigger than they've been. So, you know, in terms of replacing guys, they didn't lose a ton of key guys except the offensive line in those 2 positions. And frankly, the transfers they brought in are better. You know, I think one of the hallmarks, it's not necessarily a team that's loaded with superstars, although they do have some really good players. But, man, it is really deep. I cannot tell you this may be the deepest Vanderbilt team I've covered. I think it's premature to say it because they haven't played the South Carolinas, the LSUs, the Alabamas, those guys yet. And so I don't want to be premature there. But, like, when you go to fall camp and you watch them, which we're allowed to do, and you're looking at the 3 at some spots and going, man, this guy would start for them a lot of years. It's been kind of a different era for them with this team.
Chris here. Thanks for taking time to join us, man. So along those same lines, like, that's one of the things that I think got lost. And maybe, frankly, it was because, hey, it's Vanderbilt. We want to talk about Pavia, and that's about it. But I think we saw here last year for South Carolina, yeah, they had Sellers, they had Stewart, they had a lot of talent, but they were also very old. I mean, I think last year's South Carolina team had, 30, 35 seniors. What is that figure for Vandy? I had someone tell me the other day maybe it was in the 40s, I think, in terms of seniors, 5th-year seniors, grad type guys.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it up a few weeks ago at Vandy 24/7. It's in an article if you find it. I don't want to go searching for it while I'm trying to talk to you and lose my train of thought. But, like, it was an astonishing number of, like, graduate transfers and seniors. You know, and sometimes that figure can be a little misleading. There can be, you know, walk-ons who never play that are listed as seniors. But, like, actual dudes who play, like when you peruse their depth chart, which unfortunately is not up on the site at the moment, I was going to reference that too. It is glaring, like how many juniors, seniors, and graduate guys they have. It is a large number.
Again, talking to Chris Lee of VandySports.com. Of course, last year coming in with Pavia was Tim Beck, also from New Mexico State, bringing in that spread option offense. And with so much experience coming back, and Beamer alluded to this yesterday, that, you know, they're getting a lot better at throwing the ball down the field, more explosive pass plays than they had, or on track for more explosive pass plays than they had a year ago. How much more from an efficiency standpoint have you seen this offense improve this year compared to last?
Oh, it's crazy. And again, look, I don't know how good Virginia Tech is, and I know that the team they played in the opener, Charleston Southern, with apologies to listeners, in your state is not a great litmus test for what's ahead. But they've been averaging, I think, over 8, maybe over 8.5 yards a play in each of the 2 games so far. And the difference in talent, guys, like the team they had last year was like a feel-good little engine that could kind of story. Like, I don't know how they beat Alabama or how they were in the Texas game. You know, if they get an onside kick, they got a chance to tie Texas with the touchdown on the point after, or win if they go for 2 in the final 2 minutes. They lost at LSU by a touchdown. Now, the South Carolina game, as you guys saw a year ago, that's when the dam finally started to burst. I watched that game. I'd seen South Carolina. I knew the athletes they had. I was like, this is kind of where it starts to break down, because Carolina had just so many guys in the trenches that Vanderbilt just didn't have any answer for. And that was probably their worst game too, which didn't help. But this is a very different team. Like, they've got dudes at skill positions who've got more speed than they had. Again, the offensive line, I think that was priority number 1 in the offseason. You knew that Pavia had to stay healthy this year, and that was a risk. I mean, second half of last season, he was not the same guy. Deion Walker lands on him in the Kentucky game, and he wasn't the same guy till the bowl game. When they got him healthy again for that, he accounts for 5 touchdowns. So, I mean, it's just I don't know that I'm answering the question you asked me, but it's just a much, much different team. Last year, it felt like they were just kind of getting by with duct tape and baling wire and defense for a while. This year, I think they've got guys that you really have to be concerned about.
Chris, if you can, go beyond the hype with Diego Pavia and kind of drill it down. What have you seen from him this year, maybe in terms of on-field improvements compared to what he was last year when he was obviously already pretty good?
I don't know that he's any better. I mean, the ratings, like, he's PFF's number 1 quarterback right now. He threw a bad ball last week against Virginia Tech. He didn't throw a lot last year. You still would like to have him a little less involved in the running game. I don't know if he's better or not. Time will tell, but I just think that the supporting cast he's got is so much better that it allows him to stay upright and make throws. It gives him some running lanes maybe he didn't have a year ago. I mean, they've got dudes like Trey Richardson, who had the one-handed touchdown catch last week. Like, they didn't have a guy as good as him on that offense a year ago. Martell Height, their corner, who's a 2-way player, is a really fast, explosive guy. I saw make some long grabs in practice in fall camp. And Eli Stowers is a year older and more experienced at the position. They're just deeper everywhere. And I think so much focused on him last year. I'm amazed they did what they did, because I didn't think their surrounding cast on offense was very good. This year, I don't think that. And I just think it shows you how good he is now that he's got a roster around him that looks more like SEC players. My guess is that is the.
Who's up, Chris?
Then we lost him, Tyler.
I think we may have lost him. Uh-oh.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
we got you.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Did I miss a question?
No. We just, it cut off there. But
It cut off just at the end there, Chris. We got a couple more minutes, so let's bring things forward to the South Carolina game. We're still learning about both these teams, and we're going to learn a lot. I think this week's the biggest test, I think, for both of these teams. So in the last couple minutes here, what are the keys for Vandy in this one? What are the keys for South Carolina in this one? What's going to really, in your mind, determine, based on what you've seen the first couple weeks, determine who wins and who loses this game?
Well, turnovers are always a big thing. They had 7 all of last year. They had 2 in the first half alone last week, which was one reason they were down 20-10 at half. I think mistakes is a big thing. Their offensive line has committed a lot of penalties so far. But I look around the conference, I feel like that's a theme everywhere. I don't know if officials are throwing more flags this year or not, but you can't sabotage your chances. That's always been a tough game for them to win. And look, I know Carolina has not played to Carolina's potential yet, but that could happen at any moment when you've got guys like Sellers and Harbor. I think limiting the big plays. I think the one concern I have, maybe one of the biggest ones outside of those two things, is covering Harbor, who's going to be a headache for anybody. I do worry what it looks like when they face top-end receivers who can get open. I'm not sure how good their secondary is. I don't think it's bad, but it's not been tested the way it's going to be tested. So I think getting a pass rush on Sellers is going to be a big thing. I know that's something that Carolina has struggled with so far, but you're 2 games in also. Sometimes those things rectify themselves. I think those are the things I'm watching are just mistakes, and the Sellers have time to really beat you downfield and get guys open. And of course, with Carolina, special teams is always an issue, but Vanderbilt is pretty good in that regard too. So those are the things that jump out.
He is Chris Lee of VandySports.com. We appreciate your insight and looking forward to what should be a fun game Saturday night.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. We'll get into what Casey Henry had to say about South Carolina's offensive line yesterday, as he was pretty brutally honest about what's gone wrong so far this year. That's coming up next as the Takeover Hour rolls on here in the game.
If you're out there looking for a local, reliable HVAC service for your home or your business in the Midlands, reach out to our friends over at Krantz Cooling and Heating, KrantzCooling.com, K-R-A-N-T-Z, cooling with a K, KrantzCooling.com, or give Justin Krantz, the general manager over there, and his team a call, 803-755-0793. I've had Krantz Cooling out to my home several times. They did a mini split for me in the garage. They've checked out all the other units at my house to make sure they're running in tip-top shape. Love my experience so much that when my mom moved to Irmo, I got them to go out to her home too. They put in 2 mini splits for her. They handle all her HVAC needs as well. They could do the same for you. KrantzCooling.com or 803-755-0793. Since 1983, Krantz Cooling, their team has been providing great service to business owners and families in the Midlands. They can do the same for you.
Well, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Wednesday on the game as we look ahead to Vanderbilt this upcoming weekend. Of course, one thing we've talked about a lot this week and have talked about, unfortunately, a lot over these past couple of years is concerns with South Carolina's offensive line. And I thought yesterday, Casey Henry, of course, starting right tackle for South Carolina, was very honest and open with what the struggles have been so far and issues with communication, quite frankly. Here's Casey Henry detailing some of the problems they had just this past Saturday night as they took on SC State.
I think that, to be an effective offensive line, you have to play 5 as 1, any level of football, that's true. I think communication is probably our biggest thing right now. From Lenoris to Boaz and Boaz out. There were like 6 or 7 times that I saw in the game where we weren't really getting the calls, you know what I mean? And it was like, I would have to ask, it's loud, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the band's really loud and all this stuff, you can't really hear that much, but, we really need to be on the same page, especially at home when we're not in a away atmosphere. But I think that today, especially, we worked on communication a lot. Lonnie's got a great game plan coming together to let us play downhill, not have to think as much. I think we're going to do really well on Saturday with communication and everything else.
So when you hear that initially, that does raise a lot of concerns, especially considering the fact you're playing at home. It was SC State, not nearly as raucous as maybe it's even going to be this Saturday against Vanderbilt. You got some tough road tests coming up in a couple weeks. Obviously, Baton Rouge is one that comes to mind. So that's something that does need to get fixed very, very quickly, or it could be a very long season communication-wise for that O-line.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. First of all, I think, shout out to Kaysen for just coming out and saying it. Typically, you just don't really learn these things these days in press conferences. Now that that's identified, here's the thing. That's actually something that should not be that difficult to clean up. So I know some people are saying, well, hey, how does that happen? Well, guess what? Sometimes issues pop up in football. There's 1,000 things going on. I'm sure when they repped it in practice, maybe these issues did not pop up. But guess what? Now they did, and now you address them. So, I think that's something, whenever there is a problem, you reiterate how to fix it, you focus on it, and then you hope that you can improve it. And if anything, I think it's actually kind of a positive that an issue has been identified. It's not just, hey, like what the heck is going on? We don't have answers. We don't have any way to fix this. And, I don't think that means there's going to be a magical fix on Saturday. But I think with Boaz and Lenoris now kind of reiterating some of these things, that could be a positive this week. And, on the road, here's the thing. On the road, you have certain things you do that are just designed for on the road when you can't hear each other think, basically. Sometimes those things aren't in play at home because you don't expect to not be able to hear. So now, it might be as simple as making sure you're yelling louder and being more just communicative, or you implement some of the aspects that you use on the road at home as well to try and clean these things up.
Yeah, and you heard Boaz even say in the same media availability session, hey, got to be louder. And so I think there's two sides to this coin. I think a lot of people are going to say, how does this happen? To your point, Wes, why would this happen? Okay, it did, and we can't change that part of it. You can't go back, have a redo. If anything, you are glad that it happened at home against SC State in a game that you won by 28 points still. But you don't want it to linger. You got to clean it up. Not just, Tyler, you gave a great example. Going to Baton Rouge, you can imagine, right? But it's got to get cleaned up this week. You can't go play this Vanderbilt team and have, frankly, a large volume of any of these issues that we've seen, whether it's communication, whether it's some breakdowns up front, whether it's some missed balls, some missed reads, missed blocks. Like, you've got to clean up all of those things. So, Beamer talked about it too. He talked about it after the game where they had a communication issue on a 3rd down. And that play looked weird from the start. That play where before the missed field goal in the first half, Sellers, runs and ends up just sliding and basically taking a sack on 3rd down, 3rd and 10, I think it was. that was the one where you think it probably really had the most effect, right? So how do you eliminate that? Like you said, Wes, you got an issue identified. Can you go through and fix it? They've got a lot more than that to clean up. That said, so got to go clean those up as soon as possible. The good thing is that you have identified at least that one piece. Got to go get it rectified.
And it's important to note that, of course, Boaz Stanley, very new to this program, played a lot of football, obviously, but new coming in this year. And now what we're assuming is going to be your starting left guard going forward, Chet Surratt, a true freshman, a guy that also wasn't on campus before. So we have experience around him at the tackle spots and at the other guard spot. Two of your guys in your interior, again, closer to the football, and in Boaz's case, right on top of the football, are brand new. So you can have some issues I could see with communication early on as you're trying to, again, get all those guys working as one.
Well, and yeah, let's extrapolate that out. Like, this is a situation where not just in terms of the literal communication, but in terms of that kind of feel of knowing exactly how a guy beside you is going to handle a particular situation, that only comes in time. And I know that nobody wants to hear that right now. I know people are tired of hearing that, but this is a middle three, the interior of your line, that are all three different than what you had last year. I mean, Tro has been in the program, but he was not a starter last year. So your two sort of edge guys, your two tackles, obviously played and started last year. And, you know, to be fair, or to be frank, Josiah has not looked comfortable so far like you would want him to, like you would expect him to. So can he get settled in and get back in there and start playing up to his standard? But then those three guys on the interior, I think if you can get them out there side by side and let them just go play and play together, in theory, it should improve as the year goes along. You want to get as many reps as you can with all five of those guys on the field at the same time. Now, frankly, as we all know, you don't have time. It can't be week 10. It needs to happen as soon as possible. And, you know, it needs to probably start this Saturday night. But I think we're caught in that conversation we had many, many times last year, and we've had early in the season throughout the Beamer tenure at times. Hey, is what we saw in the first quarter against Vanderbilt from the South Carolina offense, is that truly who they are, or is that a bad stretch of bad ball? The talent they have, I can't imagine that that's just who they are with what we saw. Now, I think the real question is how much better and how much quicker can they get to where they're playing a good bit above that standard that we saw against SC State in the first quarter.
Yeah, and I think we have an answer to at least one piece of that, Wes, is what we saw from Lenora Sellers in the first quarter, first half against SC State. 16 ceiling, or not even close to a ceiling. No, we know because we've seen it, right? We've seen him put this team on his back, basically, and I have a feeling we're going to see that at some point this season. Now, you got to play better around him as well. If you go through the other night, I mean, could you identify more than one or two guys where you could say offensively they had a really good game, or the type of game that a lot of those guys have had in the past here? Yeah, some of the faces are new, but some of them have been here and have played football quite well. I think the answer is no. And so it goes back to what we were talking about, after the first couple of games in the preseason and in games in the past. We know that it's in there for this team. It's just about cleaning all that stuff up as soon as possible, because you've got a test this weekend where this is a Vanderbilt team that's really experienced. I think they're good. They're quite good, and they can make you pay if you don't.
We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover.
Got to do a giveaway, too. We'll come back.
We do have to do a giveaway when we come back.
Be on the lookout for that.
Be on the lookout for that as we come back and wrap up the hour. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
Our friends over at Game Day Men's Health can help you as a man reclaim your vitality by optimizing hormone levels. They specialize in TRT or testosterone replacement therapy, which will help boost your energy and strength. And they're a lot different than other clinics that do similar things. They have in-house labs that can deliver your results in just 15 minutes. They're conveniently located in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. Comfortable man cave style clinics with TVs and refreshments while you wait. Also great, they don't use any long-term contracts. Flexible plans tailored to your needs. TRT tests available to check your levels with absolutely no obligation, and then ongoing monitoring. Committed to your success with expert guidance. You can get started by going to gamedaymenshealth.com/north-Columbia. Again, located just off I-77, or give them a call, 803-265-3161.
All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. It's always Chris wrapping up the show here on your Wednesday. And as Wes mentioned a moment ago, we do have another giveaway as it is a home game week. That means another home game Firehouse Subs platter to give away. What's our number? Well, what's our call number this week? Who are we going with? I think we went 4 last week.
Caller number 5.
Caller number 5, 803-404-6100. You'll win yourself that game day tailgating platter from our friends over at Firehouse Subs. As I go and answer those phones, yesterday we were interested in hearing Beamer's comments on the injuries that were obviously coming away from Saturday. He basically gave us no answer, saying, hey, wait for the injury report later on in the week. Though, from what we heard coming away from the weekend, a lot of optimism. All those guys that were banged up are going to be able to play coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, and I tell you, Chris, my just like concern from a South Carolina standpoint, though, is just how many guys are already on that injury list, you know? And anytime you have something like that, everybody is kind of dealing, you would think, with a different degree of injury. Everybody has a little different path to getting back. And, you know, everybody probably has a different sort of path in terms of how many times they're going to be able to practice this week. So if you're an experienced guy and you've been out there a ton and you already know, your offensive or defensive scheme like the back of your hand, maybe you can afford to miss a little bit more practice time than maybe a newcomer or a younger guy can. And, I think just whenever you have a list that is that long, inevitably some of those guys will probably be back, with no issues whatsoever. Maybe a guy or two on that list don't heal up quite as quick as you're expecting, and then you're without of them. So I always think it's unfortunate when you play kind of one of these non-con games that you pretty much know you're going to win. Priority number one is typically, all right, can we get out of this thing pretty healthy? And that just was not the case for South Carolina this past week. And just to note here, it did sound like Brady Hunt, of the guys who did have to come out of that game early and did not return, was the one that Beamer just seemed most concerned about as they were waiting, at least on Sunday, they were waiting for more test results on him.
Yeah, and I think that's one not to gloss over, right? Brady Hunt, some people may go, oh, okay, tight end. not a tight end that you project to go out there and, catch 70 balls this year or anything like that, but a guy that I think from everything we know, Wes, is pretty important to the South Carolina offense. Now, the good news, yeah, you've built some depth there, but Brady Hunt's one of your top guys. He pulls down a lot of snaps, and for good reason. So, again, as you get into these conference matchups starting this weekend, you need your horses. You need your best guys. That's why you recruit. Yeah, that's why you build depth as well. But ideally, you're rolling guys in there for depth purposes to, go take some snaps, keep everybody fresh without much drop-off, if any at all, during the game. You don't want to be dipping into your depth because you have guys injured, right? So there were some guys after the Virginia Tech game that were banged up in that game that missed last week. How healthy are those guys out of the guys that got injured in the SC State game, the ones that are back? I totally, tracking with your same question there. How many of those guys were limited during the week? How many are limited during the game? Are any of them on a little bit of a pitch count? Like, how does that affect things? It's one thing to have your guys back and play. That's what you want. But are there any limitations in terms of who's actually out there? And if you look at the list, there are some important guys. There are starters on that list, and you need as many guys as you can possibly get, and you need them as healthy as you can possibly have them.
Well, and I think about, what we heard Beamer allude to earlier, talking about Vanderbilt and the fact that they've gotten a lot more explosive on offense, a lot more downfield throws. When you look at a secondary that has a lot of guys that are banged up that might play but might not necessarily be at 100%, that's probably one of the top things on my scouting report that I'm looking to exploit this weekend if I'm Vanderbilt.
Well, do you have Jalen Kilgore back, who played in week 1 but was not, was on a pitch count and then did not play? You would assume, you would hope that was more just by design, not that he had any type of setback, but it's just, hey, let's rest this thing, and then he'll be back in there at nickel. Because here's the thing: when you had Judge Collier out, and then you had Kilgore out at nickel, which meant that Cisse would slide over to nickelback himself. Now you're missing your top 2 cornerbacks, essentially, was the case against SC State. Then Cisse goes down. So now you're on nickelback number 3. Then Jaquel Holman goes down. Now you're on nickelback number 4. And not to mention the fact that you can't just play a full game with one guy there. You'd have to be able to rotate in case somebody gets dinged up or just needs a breather there as well. So you're just starting out by dipping into that depth, and that's obviously not something you want to do going into SEC play. So can you get Cisse back? Can you get Collier back in there? Can you get Kilgore back in there? What is Jaquel Holman's status there? The freshman who it looked like was about to play a big role at nickel against SC State and comes off kind of holding his arm/shoulder. So lots of guys there that we will be closely monitoring as these, they call it availability report. It's an injury report, but I guess, I don't know, the SEC doesn't want to call it that. First one comes out tonight at about 8:10. So be on the lookout for that tonight. You'll get an official South Carolina availability report and Vanderbilt availability report for this game, and then it will come out Thursday night, Friday night, and then Saturday, 90 minutes before kickoff.
How many questionables do we get on tonight's?
Oh, I think
a lot,
probably.
Yeah. Probably so.
Yes. Questionables and probables.
Yeah, maybe not as many as Ole Miss, but probably quite a few. We'll discuss that coming up tomorrow and continue to preview Vanderbilt as well. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
Tell you who is not questionable is our friends at Integrated Media right here in the Midlands, 803-948-8327, Or, of course, like we always tell you, integratedmediainc.com. If it is time to upgrade the man cave, it's time to upgrade the home theater system, or maybe just upgrade the TV in your living room and the entire setup around it, hit up our friends at Integrated Media. You can get more information at their website. That is integratedmediainc.com. Let them come out, hang the TV, hide the wires, go surround sound, and just completely upgrade your football viewing experience throughout this upcoming season. It's still early, so there's still time, but this thing's going to go quick. So go ahead, let's upgrade it so we have a great experience. Have the friends over, and then